This is a great patch, Taylor.
Yeah, it sounds awesome.
You're gonna have to put it up on patch storage.
The drums aren't ZOIA, actually.
Well, now I feel cheated.
I know, I cheated.
No, that's awesome. I love the formatty kind of vocal sound that you got on
Yeah.
there. Hey everybody, we're back again for another boot camp. Today, our engineer Taylor is going to show us how to make a mono subtractive guitar synth, and well, that's our subject for this week. We also have Mickey Bones joining us again.
Oh.
And yeah, he's is Mickey Bones a band? Like,
Mickey,
are you?
No, Mickey Bones is my anonymity, but not so anonymous anymore, which is fine.
I blew it for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
It's not a band yet.
It actually
Yeah.
came my dad's surfer buddy. His name was Billy Bad Bones, and I always liked that, so I took Mickey Bones.
he sounds like a cool guy.
Yeah.
I feel like it should be a band, like you should be the front man of a band, and it should be like Mickey Bones and the Hangnails,
Yeah,
or something, and it's like a debaucherous character that kind of like wears a lot of necklaces, maybe,
yeah, and
like
chains.
his shirt unbuttoned low, and dog chains, and maybe lots of bracelets.
And some like really intense rings
True.
with huge gems.
I like it. I think you should become this character.
Your specialty
band.
is like you play slide guitar with all your rings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
But,
just a beer bottle.
Or that.
Right.
Yeah.
Or a whiskey.
Those
whiskey
are your
bottle.
rings.
Yeah.
So let's get into some stuff from last week. As far as we started a thing where we are going to feature your patches. If you send them in, we'll feature a few of them on the live stream. We'll get into the bass patch first before I show off a couple of the ones people sent in. And if I feature your patch, we'll make you official ZOIA in first class. I've got the pin. Oh, it's on this side. I've got the pin here, and it's pretty cool. And we'll give you a certificate. And this is what the pin looks like. And there's a couple of you that will receive one this week. If you made a flanger patch and you still want to send it in, even though it's a week later, that's fine. So just follow along and try to make the patch something of your own, and send it in to me. And my email is media@empresseffects.com, and we can we'll feature a couple of them every week. It'll be fun to see. It's really fun to see what everybody's doing with it, because I think where the ZOIA kind of excels is when you really dive into patching. Like you can download patches off patch storage and it's great and it's fast, but for me it's much more fulfilling to build something myself. It's like making a song. I have something completely new and novel. So I hope you guys will try to do the same as you kind of follow along here. And I'll let Taylor kind of take it over from here and get into the meat of this week's subject, which is guitar synths, mono guitar synths.
Cool. So hello everyone, I'm Taylor. And so like Mitch was saying, we're going to build some synths that kind of sound like what I was jamming on the intro there. So we're going to build basically a synthesizer that just tracks the playing of your guitar. So the first few boot camps that we've done, so far I focused just on the effects and kind of showing how to kind of build those from scratch. And of course the ZOIA is awesome for that. It's got all sorts of effects built in, and I think we've kind of started to show hopefully that whenever you kind of can understand how the effects are actually built, then you can see that the ZOIA kind of opens up the possibility to just kind of build them from scratch and kind of, as a result, get your own kind of unique take on the effects. But then there's like kind of a whole other side of the ZOIA where rather than just using it for effects, you can actually use the ZOIA to create sounds itself and to kind of turn it into its own instrument. And so that's kind of what we're going to start to dive into today. And just kind of walk through the basics of how to build a synth that does that. So we'll start with just a blank patch here. And let me straighten out. So yeah, we're going to build basically a subtractive synth. And what that is, if you haven't heard of that before, is a subtractive synthesizer basically takes one or more kind of sound sources or waveforms. So it could be just a single sine, or it could be a sine and sawtooth and a square wave and some noise mixed in. And you kind of have this kind of like big wall of just of sounds. Then you feed that in. The second stage is into some filtering. And so this is kind of where you'd actually like subtract. You'd use the filter to subtract away the different frequencies that you might not want. And you kind of use the filter to help sculpt the sound that you're after. And then finally, at that point, you still just kind of have just this like big block of sound, of continuous sound. So the final stage is the amplifier is what amp is what a lot of synths would have, or a VCA. And you use that to actually adjust the volume of the sound so that you control when it kind of actually like passes the sound through. And then in today's case, we're going to use the guitar to kind of control that. So as you pluck your guitar, it'll let through like a note. And a lot of keyboards, of course, would just like synths with keyboards would have that. So whenever you press a key, it's going to let through the sound with that. So those are kind of the four main building blocks of subtractive synthesis. And that's what we're going to dive into today. So starting with the first one, actually, I kind of drew up a little picture of all that too. See if we can fit this all on the screen. So these are kind of the four different blocks that we're going to dive into, and each of them will kind of put onto a separate page just so it's easy to kind of keep track of everything. So yeah, you have the control signal, which is going to control the pitch of the oscillator. And then all this is going to feed into the filter, and then finally into the VCA or the amp, and that's going to be controlled also by the guitar or keyboard or whatever you want to actually control that with. So yeah, let's get into it. So the first thing you're going to want to do is put down an audio input. So in interface modules and audio input. I'm seeing my camera's also shaking there, so I'll try to be lighter on the table. Audio input, and we're just going to use just mono. So just put in just the left input. And so in this first stage here, we're going to start with just like that control section. So there's two things that we want to get, like two values that we kind of want this page to produce for us. So one is a CV value that is going to kind of correspond to the pitch of the note that you're playing on the guitar. And then the second part is a CV value that is basically telling you when you're actually playing the note. So something that will just say, like, as the note's being held, it'll be high, and then once you stop, it'll go back down. So we're going to start with the pitch detector. And on the ZOIA, this is as easy as going into analysis modules and pitch detector. You put that down and then just connect the audio in to the input of the pitch detector. And now, if I'm just going to switch over to guitar. So now if I just look at the output of the pitch detector, as I play, it tracks the pitch of my guitar. And that is outputting, like you're seeing it as a frequency right now, but it's actually just, it's outputting just a CV value that we can use to feed into other things like oscillators to set their pitch. And then while we're at it, we'll add one other thing. So if you go into control modules and then scroll down to a CV filter and paste that down. And we'll come back to this kind of a little later, but basically what a CV filter does is, like, as you go here, if I switch it to notes, so if I go from an E to a higher E on my guitar, it just jumps, like the CV value just goes straight from low E to higher E. Whereas if you feed it in to a CV filter, what that's going to do is let you adjust the amount of time that this is going to take to respond. So instead of just jumping right from the low value up to the high one, if we set it to like something higher, like 500 milliseconds, then you'll see that it'll slowly kind of ramp up or down depending on what value you have here. And so I'm going to set it just to its lowest value for now, but we'll come back to that because that's a lot of fun. Okay, so now we have output of this as a CV value for the pitch. And then the second part that we want is a value that tells us basically when we're actually playing a note on the guitar or whatever instrument you're plugging in. So go back into analysis modules, and there's two options here that we can choose from. And so the onset detector basically is going to send out a trigger anytime that it detects a peak in the audio that's coming in. So if I play just a single note, it's going to send out a pulse or a trigger. If I play like 3 notes in a row, it'll catch those and send them all out as individual triggers. And then an envelope follower is actually just going to follow the envelope or the dynamics of your guitar as you're playing. So as it gets louder, it'll kind of follow up and then kind of die off with the note as it quiets down. So they're both something that we could use here. Just depends what kind of sound you're after, but for now I'm going to go with an envelope follower because I want it to be able to tell whenever the guitar is still like ringing, whereas the onset detector is only going to detect just the initial kind of pluck of it. And one option that you can add in here is the rise and fall time. And so if you come into this, it just says an input, output, and then rise and fall time. And I like to set this just real low for right now, and then we can set the fall time to a bit higher. And what these do is just kind of like their name suggests, it's just the amount of time that it takes whenever you pluck a note for it to, once it sees the peak, it's like how quickly will it rise up to that, and then once it detects that it's going down, how slowly or quickly is it going to fall back down. So I kind of like having a quicker attack and like a slower release or fall time on it. So go ahead and connect the input to that. And so now at the output, you can see it kind of tracks the volume or the dynamics of my guitar as I play. And one other thing that I like to add here is you'll notice, like, if I just lightly move my hand around, it's going to pick up just like fret noises, or if you have like a noisy guitar or a noisy signal coming in, it might just pick up just that noise, and we don't want that to always be triggering the synth. So one way around this that I like, there's a few ways you could do this, but just go into control modules and put down a comparator. And if you haven't used a comparator module before, what it does is it has 2 inputs, a positive input and a negative input. And basically how it works, and then just a CV output. And so If the positive input is higher than the negative input, then the output's a 1. Or positive input is greater than or equal to the negative output, it outputs a 1. And then if the negative goes just a little bit higher, it outputs a 0. And so what I like to do is just set this to, I don't know, just set it to 0.1 for now, the negative input, and then connect the output of the envelope follower into the comparator. And so now what that is doing is just, it basically, I guess, is acting like a gate. You could kind of put a gate before, but it's just like if I just do some like light noise, you kind of have to play around with this value. But if I were to just kind of move like that, that's no longer triggering this. But if I play a note, then it does. And it also converts it over so that it's just kind of like a gated signal. So it's either high while the guitar is ringing, or it's low.
So the comparator will kind of, sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, no.
The comparator will get rid of any unwanted kind of fret noise that will potentially trigger the synth when you're using a envelope follower like this.
Exactly, yeah. And again, it's just one of the ways. It's kind of, there's so many different ways to kind of approach everything with the ZOIA. The other thing that it does do is just it takes it from an envelope that is kind of like a CV value that's kind of changing just to something that's either off or on. And I like that just because then that's what we can send in later on into like the VCA and the envelopes to kind of control the sound. Yeah, so that at this point we have this value tracking the pitch and this value just tracking when a note is being played. So we'll just go ahead and name this page control. Oh, forgot the O there. That's all right. And let's also just save the patch. We'll name this one Synth. All right. So yeah, that's kind of the first building block just to get things started. Were there some questions maybe that we wanted to talk about at this point, or? No, I can't hear you, Mitch. I don't know
Yeah, hey Jim.
No.
I was muted, sorry. The way it's set up now, yeah, with the comparator, it would reduce the dynamics into on or off. And I think Taylor's going to add more to it to, yeah, you're going to add, more to create something else to create the dynamics, which would be an ADSR. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we'll get into ADSRs. Okay, awesome. So, yeah, that's the first kind of block. So now we'll move on to the next page and we'll kind of build the oscillator section. So like I said, with subtractive synthesis, you'd have kind of one or more oscillators or different sound sources playing, and we kind of just mix them together. And in our case today, we're just going to put in two oscillators just to keep it nice and simple. So go into audio modules and oscillators. I'll put down one, and then let's change up the color, surf, and we'll put down a second, and we'll leave them both as sine for right now, and then finally go back into audio modules, and we'll put down a audio balance, and so just connect the output of the oscillators into the audio balance, and we'll just leave the mix at 50 right now. So that just is blending these two. And of course, these are going to be the exact same note for now. And so they're by default both set to A0, so just like really low note. But what we can do is bring this second one up an octave, so A1. And we have that. So at this point, we have two oscillators going, and what we can do now is just take this pitch value, and now we can use that, connect the output here into the input of each oscillator. And so now if you look at the frequency of these oscillators are tracking the pitch of the guitar. as you play. And of course, at this point, here, I can quickly show what we have. So if we go into audio output, I'm just going to turn gain control on. So if we just hook. So right now, the output of this so we just kind of have this continuous, let's turn the gain down, kind of just wall of sound coming out of this, but it is tracking the pitch of our guitar. So that's pretty sweet. So I'm just going to break that connection. So we'll come back to the oscillators in a bit, and we'll kind of change up the different waveforms and show how that works. But first, we'll move along so that we can actually get it so that we have a little bit more control from the guitar. So we'll just label this oscillators. All right. So then the third section is the filters. And so you can go into audio modules, and there's two choices kind of that we could use at this point. So typically in subtractive synthesis, it's going to use a low pass filter is at this stage. And so what that's going to do is let you set a frequency, and it's going to pass all the frequencies below that, and then kind of attenuate everything above that. And so this is kind of used just to help shape the tone of the sound that's coming out of the synth. And in the ZOIA, there's kind of two options we could use here. There's the SV filter, which is a state variable filter, and a multi-filter. Without diving too deep into it, the SV filter, they're very similar, but the SV filter is a little different. It lets you have like a bunch of outputs, so you could have a band pass and low pass and high pass like in the same, and just have two different outputs for it, and control the frequency and resonance with one. So it's a little lighter on the DSP, just in general as well. Multi-filter, you have to just select the type, so low pass or high shelf, bell, and so on. Either could work, but for now I'm just going to use the low pass. And so set it to that, and then come to done. And so here we have the frequency and the Q. And if I pull my little diagram in here again, basically how the filter works is you'll have a low pass filter is going to have a shape kind of like this. And so the frequency in the module that you're setting here kind of corresponds to this point here. So at this frequency, everything below it is going to pass, and then everything above it is going to start to get attenuated. And then Q is kind of, it refers to like this little notch here. So if the Q is all the way down, then there's barely any notch. So at that frequency, it's not going to do too much. It's just going to pass it through. But as you turn the Q up, it actually adds like a little peak right at the cutoff frequency. That's going to actually like amplify that frequency a bit and just around it. And yeah, so that's kind of what the filter is doing. So let's just set the Q all the way down for now, and then set the frequency all the way up, which means that it's passing all the audio right now. And again, we're just going to leave the filter like this for now, and then keep moving on just so we can get more sounds out of here, because the first few minutes of this are just going to be me kind of like throwing down modules, and you just have to trust me that it's all going to turn into cool sounds here in a second. So we'll just name this filter.
I think you proved you're going to make a cool sound at the intro.
Yeah.
So.
True.
So we trust you.
Okay, so now the fourth block here is going to be this amp section. And so at this point, as I showed just a minute ago, we kind of have this big just wall of sound coming out of the oscillator section, and then that is feeding. Oh, it didn't actually connect it. So we'll connect that into the filter here, and then the output of the filter is just at this point the exact same kind of just mess of oscillators that's just constantly playing. But it is tracking the pitch of the guitar. So that's a start. So the next thing, and kind of the last step that we want to do, is feed it into a VCA. So VCA stands for voltage controlled amplifier, and it's in the audio modules, VCA, and just put it down as is. So it has 3 blocks to it: the input, the level control, and the output. So what the level control does is whenever it's a CV value of 0, it's just completely clamping down or attenuating the audio that's coming in. And then as the CV value increases, as you bring this up, it's going to just slowly bring up the volume or the sound that it's letting through up to just a max of 0 dB. So we can go ahead and take the output of the filter and run that into the VCA. And then right now we can take the VCA and connect that to the audio out. And I think I might have still have the gain all the way down on the output. Whoa. So we'll just set that to 0-ish. Cool. So now, again, with the VCA, if I turn it up, you can hear the audio passing through. But of course, we want to use the guitar to control that, not the knob. So what we could do at this point is, like in this first page here, we have this output of this comparator.
We lost your phone.
Oh crap!
I think maybe if we remove it and add it back.
Okay, cool. Give that a try.
Let's see.
Check.
That's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So, so on this first page, we have the comparator, which is just outputting a value just corresponding to when a note is kind of ringing out on the guitar. So we could connect that directly to this VCA, and that would kind of pass through the audio as we play. But there's other ways that we can kind of get a little bit more control over this. And one of them is through using an envelope or an ADSR. And so if you go into control modules, and right near the top, there's the ADSR module. And we'll just put that down just at the default settings for now. And so with this, you have a gate input. So this is going to be a CV signal coming in. And then 4 parameters: the attack, decay, sustain, and release. And then a CV output as well. And the easiest way to explain this is just to kind of show what's going on. So I'm going to connect the output of the comparator on the first page into the ADSR input. And now, one little trick with the ZOIA, there's a few modules that we've added just kind of an extra kind of visual screen, more visual kind of screen to use. So if you click on the attack and then hit Shift and the I button, then it's going to change the view. So you could just toggle through the different views. But for certain modules like the ADSR, we have this extra view. So we'll just do that for these
also,
4.
Taylor made these view he designed the view screens. So give yourself a pat on the back, Taylor.
Yeah, there we go.
They're pretty cool.
The other ones, there's the mixer and the mixer and the CV mixer, which also have their own kind of like special screen that aren't set up by default. So it's kind of, almost a little secret trick. You got to hit that view button to get to it. So now what we can see is this curve. So each of these 4 lines are for the attack, decay, sustain, and release. So as I play the note, you can see there's a little line moving across. And what that is doing is this curve is kind of shaping how the CV signal coming from my guitar is going to, or how this is going to respond to this signal. So the attack is like how quickly it's going to rise up. So you can see as I increase it, it like slowly rises up, and then the decay is how quick or slow it falls back down. And then the value that it's like kind of dropping back down to is called the sustain. And this isn't a time, it's actually like a level. So if we put it way up, then it's just going to drop down a little bit, and this is what is happening while the note is being held or sustained. So we'll set that to the middle, and then the release is how quickly, like once the note ends, how quickly it kind of like dies off. But yeah, again, at this point, you're still just looking at values. So I'll connect this up so we can actually start to hear things here. So I'm going to take we already have the guitar input going into here, or not the guitar input, but the envelope follower section output. And then we'll take the output of the ADSR into the VCA. And, oh, did that work? Oh, there we go. Okay, so now it's responding a little more to the guitar. And as I like move these around, you can hear the attack kind of like slowly sweep up, or be a lot quicker, like a kind of more of a pluckier sound. And yeah, there's kind of endless tweaking that you can do with these values just to kind of dial in whatever kind of sound you're looking for, whether it's like something that goes in really quick or a slow kind of swell into it. So we'll just leave this for now. Yeah, so at this point, we kind of have a working synth that's tracking and responding to the guitar.
So I have a diagram, Taylor, I can show on the screen. I think you've already connected all this up. As far as, you have, if you want to review just, this would be the basic patch, right? Or is there more you want to add?
This is even, there's like a step or two extra in this that we're going to get to. But this is good. Yeah, kind of as a review of like where we are up to this point. We have the audio input coming into the envelope follower and the pitch detector. So we have kind of two different values that are taking our input signal and then kind of converting it into CV, which is kind of like ZOIA language. And then from there, we have the pitch detector controlling the pitch of the two oscillators that we have, and they're kind of blended together with just like a 50-50 mix right now. And then those are feeding into this filter. And right now we have the filter set not to do anything yet. And then finally into this VCA. And the VCA is just kind of like choosing to like open up and let the sound come through. And it's doing that based on this kind of like ADSR envelope that we've set up here. So now there's a few, this is where it gets fun because you can kind of just go any way with this from here. And so I think, before I come back to the filter, maybe we'll go just to the oscillators again and just kind of revisit those. So we have two sine ones right now, and this one's just an octave up. So let's just go in. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, did you already go over how you changed it an octave up?
Yeah, so the way I did that was so we know, I guess right now, when I play an E2, it's jumping up to that. So they're both at E2, but this one I just biased up higher by changing the pitch up to E3 now. Actually I can explain kind of another way to do this. Let's see. So with the ZOIA, anytime that there's kind of a scale or notes in a module, the way that works is that by default, like a CV value of 0 is going to give the note A0. So just like really, really low A on a piano. And then for each increment of 0.1 CV, it's going to go up an octave higher. So a CV value of 0.1 is going to correspond to an A1, like A1 note. And then 0.2 is going to be A2. And it kind of goes up like that. And then it's the same with other notes. So like an E3, if whatever its value is in CV, if you add 0.1 to that, then that now takes it to an A4. So that's cool to know, because then what we can do is, like at this point, we set it an octave above, but we can't really set it an octave below if we wanted, or anything lower than that. So there's another trick that we can use to give us kind of like more control over the pitch of these two oscillators. So if you go into control module and value, and then important here is to go to the output and change the setting from -1 to +1. And so now if just set it right to the middle of 0. And if you toggle through this, it'll switch between like a note, and it's showing its frequency and its CV value, which is pretty handy for understanding this stuff. So if we set it to A0, we can see that the CV value is right around 0 there. And then if I were to put it way up to A1, now you can see its CV value is 0.1. And then likewise, if I put it to minus A1, which is kind of a little trick that you can do with the value module, you can't really access these like lower notes directly from the oscillator, but you can set it with a value module. And now what we can do is, since this is 0.1, if we connect this to the input of the oscillator frequency, then what it's basically doing is subtracting 0.1 from this. So now instead of being an E2, it's now an octave lower. And so if we put down another value module and do the same thing over here, and I'll just set it roughly to A0, and we'll connect this one to the input of the second oscillator frequency. Then now so this one's minus A1. If I can go up to A2, now we have the two oscillators 2 octaves apart.
Sounds cool.
Yeah. And then what's really cool, like this is a mono synth, so it's only tracking just one note, which is like that's the pitch detector. It can't track more than one note at a time. But one way that we could kind of turn this into like a polyphonic synth in a way is that you can just set these 2 oscillators, or if you have 4 oscillators, you could kind of tune them all so that they're like harmonics of each other. So if we set this one to like A0 and set this to E, so then you can kind of like set up like you could set up full chords and everything. So yeah, this is where it's getting crazy, because you could just do whatever you can kind of imagine with it. So let's leave it like that, and let's just try out some other waveforms. So if I switch this now to a square or a triangle or sawtooth.
I vote sawtooth.
Sawtooth? All right, let's do
I really
it.
like this, the sub bass with a sine wave, and then having the sawtooth on top of it, so you get your clean sub, because the sine wave's just one single fundamental. You're not getting any extra harmonics. With the sine wave, you're adding all those extra kind of gritty, low or high end tones, So keeping that one sub, as far as sound design goes, when your sub has multiple harmonics, it tends to distort and not sound so good. So this is a great way, Taylor, to have something like clean that would sound good on like big speakers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, let's do that then. So we'll set this. So this first one is still a sine wave. Sorry, I'm just looking up my screen. This is such a bouncy desk. Hopefully it's not jiggling too much. But we'll set this one. Let's go crazy and go like minus A2. So it's going to be like 2 octaves down. And then we'll set the sawtooth. Let's go just A0. And then you can change the balance of it. Yeah, like Mitch was saying, like a sawtooth has a lot more harmonics, so it's naturally just going to be louder than the sine wave. So let's do, more of the sine. And you heard it kind of like glitch out a little bit there. That's one thing with the pitch detector. I guess with a synth like this, since you're controlling it all with your guitar and it's only going to pick up on like one note at a time, you kind of like learn how to play the guitar in a way that just makes sense for the pitch detector, because if you play and like accidentally kind of throw in like other weird little noises, if it's louder, like it's gonna jump to that, which I think kind of sounds cool sometimes, like we're just accidentally just jump way up. But yeah, that is one thing to watch out for. Okay, so at this point we've got oscillators and all that. Yeah, filter. It's filter time. So
I think, sorry to interrupt you, Taylor, but I think filtering with synths is just so key. I mean, just like the first sound you got, the filter was what gave it really I think the tone. And stacking filters, playing with filters is just like the way to sculpt these things. I'll let you go.
Yeah, definitely. It's this is where it starts to like really sound just like a real kind of synth that you'd see somewhere else. So yeah, right now the filter is basically fully open, so it's not really doing anything. So if I like bring the frequency down, then now you can hear it's kind of cutting off a lot of the higher end. But again, we're not going to control this with the knob. That's no fun. We're going to use more envelopes. So we're going to go again with another ADSR, and just like we are controlling the VCA, we're going to use that to also control the filter. So if we go back into control, ADSR, and put another one down, and we'll come back to the first page and take this comparator output and feed that into the gate input of this ADSR. And now, I mean, we could use the ADSR to control the frequency or the Q. Let's do the frequency. So actually here first, I'll just change it back over to this view by hitting Shift and the I button. And we'll just leave it like that for now. And so we'll set the frequency. Let's set it like pretty low. And then we'll connect the ADSR output to the frequency. And we'll drop the connection down. And so this is basically, it's using the envelope to actually change this frequency. So you can imagine like this curve, like this kind of peak here, actually shifting up. So as you play, it's going to move and like move back. And the strength of the connection is controlling basically how far up this frequency is going to climb up. So right now, with that strength, it climbs up a bit. Now it climbs up a lot higher. And then the curve you can use to kind of shape how quick you want it to respond to that. And sustain.
I think we lost the I'm not hearing the sound from the synth anymore.
Oh, really?
Are you, Mike?
I see.
I'm hearing it.
Oh. Must just be on my end.
Weird.
Sorry. Now I hear it.
Okay, cool. Sweet. So then, you can add in the Q, and this is that. Yeah, that's when it starts getting like really cool. Yeah. So at this point, this is like we kind of have a fully working synth, and it kind of has a lot of the same parameters here that you'd see on like another synth, like a mini Moog or something. Like I just kind of kept looking at just the panel of like a picture of one of those. I don't actually have one, but and just kind of trying to set it up like in a way that would be kind of similar to like what you'd see on the controls for that. So like the filter, you have the attack and decay, and like that is used a lot in the resonance just to kind of shape the sound. And then in this oscillator bank, we can kind of change the waveform and change the mix between the two and all that. And then of course you can change how the output responds. So yeah, that is a synth on the ZOIA, kind of at yeah, very basic.
Yeah, it sounds good, Taylor.
One. Sweet.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, and it's kind of just like you can just go on and tweak any parameter, and I find each time that I kind of like sit down, I've kind of just the last few days just kind of done this from scratch a few times just to run through it, and each time I kind of just, I don't know, you'll just set the values to whatever, just something at the start, and then like pretty quickly I'm just like, oh, you can kind of find a new sound that you didn't have the last time, and it's cool. And then yeah,
I feel like every time you kind of go to patch, you can make something different like that.
Yeah.
That's,
keep
and there are a lot
on
of
something different.
There are a lot of different ways you can kind of customize it. And I know you mentioned you had tuning 2 oscillators. Like I think you tuned a fifth up, basically, that second oscillator, and which would be like a power chord kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I like it too. I like the sub bass with the sine, and then I couldn't really hear the sub in my in-ears, but
Oh, it's there. I hear it.
I bet it is.
I've got good headphones though. Hey Taylor, I know you had also talked about maybe putting a Stompswitch for some glide between notes. Did you want to visit that at all?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, thanks for the reminder. So
Cool.
yeah, if you remember at the start, I kind of added in the CV filter and kind of quickly brushed over it. Said I'd come back to it. So what that's doing, like I said, was that changes the amount of time that it's going to take to respond to a change in pitch, like from the output of this pitch detector. So with it all the way down, it's just going to be really, really quick. But if I turn it way up, like something like 500 milliseconds, then it's going to kind of slowly ramp up to or down. And so you could have that set, or you could actually use a Stompswitch to add that in. And again, yeah, there's a few ways you could do that. So if you want, let's say we just wanted to add in, like make it so the left stomp will turn this on to, like, let's say this setting. So if we go into interface modules and Stompswitch, and let's do latching. Also, I'm just going to go ahead and save this. I thought my ZOIA just crashed there for a sec. Got scared. But yeah, so we could there's a few ways we could do this. We could just set this down to 0, connect the Stompswitch, and just set the connection to some value, and then when it's on, so that's one way to do it. It might be a little harder to like get the exact value you want, because you'd have to kind of keep adjusting this. Another way is you could go into control modules and sorry, let me just think about this. You could go into the in switch, set the number of inputs, and you could just have input 1 be directly from the pitch detector, and you could have input 2 be from this CV filter, and then you could use the Stompswitch and connect that to control which channel you want to select here. So if we set this up pretty high, then right now, oh right, okay, sorry, I forgot how I had this routed. In this case, you'd have to actually route this into the oscillators instead of the output of this. So I won't connect that right now. But anyways, yeah, a lot to say. There's kind of like always a few different ways in the ZOIA that you could approach anything. But yeah, just the stomp switch, like I showed there, is kind of the quickest way. Yeah, and I guess on the topic of oscillators too, I have these two like tuned octaves apart, but one thing that's really cool is you could just have them, like if we set it the both to A0, and then yeah, let's switch them to here and just put this one just like down just a tiny bit and this one up, and now they're like just going to be a bit out of tune. Or more than a bit out of tune, but you can kind of play, so you could put them just like a tiny bit out, or you could put them octaves apart. Yeah,
And you could also detune them with like an LFO. If you had an LFO, I would put them both as the same, like both saw waves, so you got that like phase cancellation as they detuned.
yeah,
Or both. I would have them, just the same kind of waveform, maybe just to get a better example of what it does. But then if you just detune one of them, or you could detune both, there's a lot of different ways you could do it with an LFO. You could add like an inverter, and then they could be wow, that sounds cool.
yeah. I didn't even mean to play that, but yeah, that sounds pretty sweet. Yeah. So were there any other questions or things to cover on?
I think I might have a few more just suggestions. Use a comparator to do the sync. Yeah, there's so you were detuning, or you were talking about kind of multiple tuning oscillators, and there is like it's a mono pitch tracking thing, but there is a trick to getting it to play polyphonic chords. It's kind of hacky because you have to select your key. So I would use a quantizer and run all my oscillators into quantizers. And you know what? I'm probably going to get into this on the next episode, because it's kind of, or maybe a future bootcamp, because it's kind of a complex topic. But if you look at, you're still playing mono guitar, but you want to play the root, and then it will, if you have the quantizer set right, you can, play 3 or 4 oscillators in, a chord. And I've made a couple patches. I think on Patch Storage, if you look up like hacky guitar synth or hacky polyphony, you can find like how to do polyphony from a mono input. Also, there's a Euro Bureau patch that does it. It's like I think it's patch number 4. Yeah, 1 volt chord. Kind of the same concept where you're sending 1 volt and it's making a chord out of that one note. But you have to choose a scale for the notes, or your major and minor thirds, for those to align properly. And if you're playing extended chords. So yeah.
So with that, would you have like the quantizers set differently for each oscillator? Like one is only pentatonic or something, and another one is like the full scale or something like that. So it could kind of have different notes and not all be the same ones.
That's a good idea. That's an easy way to make sure you like get the fifth. I would bias it. I would bias your oscillator like Taylor did with the fifth, and then run that into the quantizer, and then and you could change chords with the stomp. That's a good idea, Martin.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
But yeah, there's a lot of different ways to go about getting some like big polyphony without polyphonic pitch tracking. Polyphonic pitch tracking would be probably really DSP intensive anyway. I think there's a couple pedals that have it that's all they do. But yeah, you could change. That's like change from when you want to play a major chord or a minor chord. You could just switch the thirds with the stomp switch.
Another thing I want to try, I haven't done it, I just kind of thought of it this morning when I was doing it, but it'd be neat to even just have it on, like set up a sequencer, so it's like almost like an arpeggiator or a sequencer that would just go based on like whatever root note you're playing, and just kind of like arpeggiate them. That'd be pretty wild.
You want to try it?
No, I could do it.
It's cool.
I feel like I can't patch under pressure on the fly.
Well, you know what? I'll just talk while you try it because I have other stuff to talk about. I can talk on here you can just relax and patch, and I'll talk because nice relaxing patch live, no pressure, Taylor.
Live, no pressure.
So I do want to shout out Sarah Bell Reed did a ZOIA Eurobureau video yesterday, and it is amazing. It's just such a good video. I need to post a link. I'll post a link to it in the chat because I just think it's just really good. And then let's see. There it is. And she actually does some, she's a trumpet player, and she does some trumpet synths in her video. So if you're looking for ideas on this kind of thing, check out her video too. They sound great. The other thing is, it's today is 3 years since the ZOIA came out, which blows my mind because I feel like it just came out like I feel like a year ago or something. The first anniversary, we did I don't know. That video isn't available outside. I don't know why.
I thought
maybe it's a bad link.
I was watching it yesterday. I can try to share it because I'm in Canada.
Right. If you didn't know, I'm in the U.S. I'm the only Empress, I think, employee in the U.S. I am. But we're actually all three in different time zones, even.
Yeah, true.
But yeah. So when we do Max Crazy, there's going to be some latency. There's no way to do anything in time live here.
That's all part of the Max Crazy, though. It's not supposed to be in time.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm running the immersion. I am. We're actually all hanging out in the next, we'll come out of our offices and hang out in the next room after this.
Yeah.
So yeah, 3 years. I mean, the first year we did this 24-hour live stream. It was right at the beginning of COVID. I had COVID during the live stream, but it was still a lot of fun. And last year, I think we were too kind of tired to do anything for the for the anniversary this year. I'm glad we're doing the boot camp because it feels like it coincides. So I didn't feel the need to do another like 16-hour live stream.
Was it just you, Mitch? 24 hours by yourself?
No, thankfully not. It was. You didn't watch it? No, I'm kidding.
3 years ago, I was a student studying very hard and didn't have 24 hours to spare. Sorry.
That's okay. I don't know if anyone stuck around for the full 24 hours. It wasn't actually 24. It was like 16, maybe 14. I don't remember. But no, it was like Ben Jordan came and cool. Talked. Steve came. We had a lot of musicians like perform live streams with their ZOIAs, which was really cool. I think I did some kind of DJ thing. Steve's was cool, but it didn't work, and I tried to get him. It didn't work entirely because he had a ZOIA synth going through, and then he played the recorder and had a mini drum set with those. Percussion, those Poly perks that play drums through MIDI controlled by the ZOIA, and it was insane. It was so cool, but you couldn't hear the ZOIA synth in the video for some reason. It was
bummer.
Yeah. So there were a lot of people. There was like a full schedule. It wasn't just me rambling while Taylor patched. Yeah. I also have some other ideas as far as, let's see, as far as synth guitar ideas. And maybe I'll show you my ZOIA cam. There it is. And this one is like just 4 detuned saw waves, and I'm running an LFO into 3 of them to give you kind of, thanks Mike, there you can see it kind of detuning. But this one is all about kind of filtering. I'm using a multi-filter for the high shelf, and I'm a big fan of high shelf and low shelf filters. If you're not familiar, the shelf is like a literal shelf where you go down a shelf and you're lowering the volume at a certain threshold. For example, here I'm boosting everything above 2600 dB or hertz by 5 dB, and the Q is also, the curve, the little bump at the end of the filter. But let's see what it sounds like. I'm not sure. Oh yeah, this has a bunch of delay. And we can increase the detune. I added a multiplier. And right here I would connect a value module to this. We talked about this the first time. I've got the LFO into the multiplier's first input, and the multiplier's second input, I would add a value module. And that value module would be my kind of control source that I'd put on like the front page. And I'd label that detune amount. And I think there's some patches that I've got SV filtered as well, and you can see I'm also kind of giving that a little bit of modulation. And as I open up that filter, you can kind of hear different things. And another thing you can do is play with like using the envelope follower to modulate different things like your attack. Like if I connect the input follower to the attack, I don't want to do it at 100% because that's going to be crazy. But then I could kind of get a longer attack the more it opens up. This also has delay and reverb. in there too. So that's, I've got a ping pong delay and like a hall reverb with a bunch of some decay. So, and we could just, I just like to just play around and experiment with modulating different things. Let's answer this question real quick. It was a copy and paste chat thing. I'm glad you can see the Sarah's video. Also, Jade, we just posted a video today that I haven't seen the full thing, but I think it's going to be really good too. The ZOIA MIDI out can do MIDI through. Yeah. So there's an option in the ZOIA to kind of, where is it? MIDI consume. So that MIDI consume can be set to none, all, or some. If you want to pass everything every MIDI note that goes into the ZOIA, out of the ZOIA, set MIDI consume to none. If you want, say you have a keyboard and you want the notes, say I have a KeyStep Pro, and I want my KeyStep Pro, I want to be able to control I want the knobs to change CCs on the ZOIA, but I want any notes I play to go on to another synth. I would set the MIDI consume to some, and that will just consume, that will not pass the notes that the ZOIA uses as CCs. So if you want to pass everything, set it to none, or MIDI consume none. If you don't want it to pass any MIDI through, set it to MIDI consume all, and ZOIA will consume all the MIDI notes and will not pass them on. So it actually it has more options, of course, than your average MIDI thing. I mean, it can, so I know we had a couple requests for like different bootcamp subjects. I think we're having a lot of fun doing this, so I think we'll have a camp in the fall again, and we can do things like the looper, and we want to do one dedicated just to MIDI. Next week I will be doing FM synthesis, and I'll have a keyboard, so I'll be connecting a MIDI controller to the ZOIA. Just don't make me play the keys.
I forgot about that. I totally pulled my keyboard in too. I was going to show how to hook that up to control it with that instead. But maybe we'll wait. Wait till next week.
Yeah, we can do it next week. I don't think we're going to have time this week. I'm not even going to... I don't think I'll show off the flangers till next week is all that people send in. So I'm thinking, next week we'll do... we'll get into the MIDI stuff, and I'll show off the ZOIA first class flanger videos. So, and hopefully some synths. Some synths too. Did you get it going, Taylor?
I think so. I haven't turned the volume up. It was just kind of some patching without volume, but let's see.
That's always a risk.
Yeah. Wow.
Sounds like a Nintendo.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
It's like when the level gets more and more intense, and the music gets faster and higher pitched.
Right.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, let's do if we connect the pitch up to the speed of this LFO.
Nice.
Level up. Yeah. So I feel like this patch needs a bit crusher.
Oh,
it almost sounds bit crushed already.
Yeah, kind of does.
But to Yeah, that's well. If you want to make a Nintendo sound, exact. What did you change? At this point, I forgot what you changed on here.
You know, I didn't touch the fill. I think I changed the oscillator. I forget. But yeah, so what I did is I just added a sequencer, 3 steps, and I have the pitch detector output going into each of these 3 steps. But then, so right now that's an A, and then I just bias these ones up, so it just forms like a major chord. So we have A, C sharp, and E. And so it's just stepping through those, and then I have this LFO, just a square wave going in to control the rate, and then just now I just patched in also like the output of the pitch detector into the speed of this, just so it like does go up with the pitch. And then I also have just a sequencer start that, which is like one of the options here in the sequencer, a restart jack is what it's called.
Right.
And so I have that also controlled by this like this comparator here, so that each time that I play a new note, it's going to restart the sequence.
Excellent. So that's kind of key to this, isn't it? Is like the restart jack, adding a restart jack on the sequencer, so your sequencer starts at 1 every time you play a note, is really how you want to set this up. Or
Yeah.
you could do it without the restart jack, and it would just be
don't know.
randomized as far as which note starts.
Yeah. I guess at that point you'd be playing more along with it instead of it kind of following what you do.
Right. That makes sense.
Um,
So
Yeah. And then I added some reverb to it as well, just because that's nice.
Nice. Yeah, turn up the reverb. I just think the reverb sounds good. The hall reverb's awesome on this pedal, but whoa, it got quieter, but it really, because it's all dispersed, but it really transformed it.
Yeah.
I like that. So the next level of like this, because there's always another level, and we could keep going forever. But what I would do on this is I would add a stop switch to the sequencer, like add a latching stop switch on the sequencer page. Yeah, yeah.
Am I doing it? Okay, cool.
Yeah, I guess you are. I mean, I didn't. And
Okay.
then I would connect that to each sequencer note, so then you could pitch it up like a fifth, or you could step through another sequencer. This is too complicated I don't want to do it, but you could have another sequencer playing that changes, that changes all 3 of those notes. So you could say have 4 different chords that one sequencer is sequencing the other sequencer through.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's complicated, but it would sound cool. Just for the sake of example, though, could you just connect that to pitch it up a fifth to each note?
Yeah. Oh wait, which?
Oh yeah. So you'd connect that stomp switch. What you do is, sorry Taylor, is connect that stomp switch to the sequencer number, each sequencer step, because you can connect to the sequencer steps.
Right. And then you just adjust
deleting that other stop switch so it didn't mess it up.
So connected.
Just pitch it up an octave. That's easier. So connected at 10% would pitch it up an octave.
Oh right. Yeah, I always forget about the connection strengths as well.
So just like it's 0.1 volt per octave, it's 10%, I think, an octave. And then so a fifth, 7 steps. I'm not even sure what the connection. I'd have to fiddle with it, but yeah. And then I delete that other stop switch if they're on the same one.
Yeah, I deleted the one on the first page there.
Sorry, Taylor. I feel like I'm putting you.
Oh no, it's all good.
Through the. Yeah.
That sounds awesome.
I love it. And so, yeah, what I was saying, instead of just pitching it up a fifth, you could have another sequencer that you would connect the sequencer to that Stompswitch select button, and that would move the sequencer along. That could pitch that up maybe 1-2 octaves, different values, and you could have all these different chords that you're sequencing through with a Stompswitch. Is what I was trying to say.
Gotcha.
Earlier. And that's probably, this is the fun part about it. I just get excited with ideas when we start patching. But yeah, I think we've never actually made it just the 1 hour. We always go over. So we're already...
Oh, is that the goal each time?
Yeah, but it doesn't... I don't care if we're having, I'd like to keep it under an hour and a half, just because your max attention span is supposedly like, I don't know, what is it? It used to be like 45 minutes is the max, but now it's 10. I made up that study.
Sounds about right.
10 sounds optimistic these days.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, we could, if anybody has any more 20 minutes, I'm sure that's what it is. So you'll probably have to come back to this to even like get the full amount. So thank you all that have participated and like paid attention this long. It takes a lot of focus. But I hope you had fun. I'm really into this patch. Taylor, have you saved this? Or would you so at this point, if you didn't want to save over your patch, I would copy and paste it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. True. I've already saved this one a few times as I've been going.
Okay. So yeah, I think that's a cool patch.
Yeah.
And if there's any last call for questions, if I missed your question, feel free to post it again. And let's see. And we're gonna have to get set up, I think, for Max Crazy. If you send in a flanger, I'll show it off next week. Let's take a look at the kind of, I didn't show this off much. It still says the pitch detector. I should point that out.
And envelope. I noticed that after.
Sorry, I did this at literally 3 a.m.
Envelope.
So,
I like envelope.
I like them both. A pitch detector and an envelope.
I'm gonna blame Taylor for all this because I was like, "Hey, does this look okay?" And he said yes. And then I sent it out, and he said there are all these spelling errors.
Whoops.
Yeah.
Words is hard. That's true.
Yeah. Yeah, Taylor, can you upload these on patch storage?
Yeah, cool. Will do. Yeah, I'll upload this one and then the one that I had going with the bass on the intro.
Awesome.
I have a banner that's actually corrected with the correct spelling, but I just loaded the wrong bit. I loaded the bad spelling into our streaming thing. Bummer. Oh, well.
No, I like it better.
I like it better too.
There's more character.
The imperfections.
Right.
Right.
I spell checked my emails, but this doesn't get spell checked. Anyway, let's see if I'm on. Okay, I don't know how this is. We're gonna. Yeah, I'm lying. I just. Okay, let's try.
Is it Max Crazy?
And I hope to see you all next week for FN Synths again. And
Sorry, I'm just gonna add in one more note here. I thought of this earlier.
Okay.
When I was making this like bass synth patch earlier, I like unplugged my guitar and plugged in the bass, and then I like accidentally like just the noise from the patch cable. I was like, I feel like that's always the sign of like you've made a cool patch, is whenever you just like unplug it and like the regular noise that usually like, just like pierces your ears is like the coolest thing ever.
That's perfect. Yeah.
I'm just gonna play this. This is my new instrument.
I'm like trying to play chords already just by you know, it's got the ambient ground
applying shame. But you write at one point that for trauma survivors, quote.
Yeah, I want to hear that. I have no idea what it was, but I think we need some vocals in this.
Shame becomes the dominant emotion.
I don't know who that is.
My Bluetooth, I think my partner's listening to a podcast and my speaker keeps connecting to her podcast.
Do we have drums to go with it, Taylor?
Oh! Yeah. Frick, where are they? Oh, maybe that was this other patch. Oh, I think I forgot to save the...
That's
Actually, I'll get some drums going.
I've got... I mean, I can't play in time to it, so it doesn't matter. Maybe you should just jam us out with your original. You know, yeah, I don't know. Someday maybe for the last one we'll like rehearse something and we'll put a full song together.
It's so hard with the latency too.
Yeah, maybe we'll record it if we have time.
Yeah,
we should just record the last one and have a jam. But I think your patch at the beginning was spot on.
That took the cake for sure.
Yeah. Thanks for taking this over this time, Taylor.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, thanks for
making a great patch.
That was fun.
And yeah, thanks everybody for tuning in. If you have questions, shoot us an email. Don't forget to sign up for the bootcamp if you want to get regular updates with my banners. And I think, yeah, that's it. Well, we'll see you next week.
Cool. Thanks, everyone.
Take care, everybody.